Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me, Lily Smith, owner of The Traveling Therapist, and Dr. Anamaria Ryan for another episode of Insights from the Couch. As you know, Dr. Anamaria, owner of 7 Counseling, is a regular in our podcast, so welcome. We are really, really happy to have you, and I'm super excited about this topic because I find that it's maybe something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's something that gets quietly talked about, but a lot of therapists are a little bit nervous about bringing it up to the surface. So today we're going to talk about the stages of change and why is it that some of our patients are really, really struggling with the stages of change and are really struggling to actually see change in their lives happening and how we as therapists play a role in that. So welcome, Dr. Anamaria.
Thank you, Jalili. Always a pleasure sharing the space and time with you.
So the first thing that I want us to do, of course, is invite Dr. Anamaria to go ahead and define the stages of change so that everyone who's listening has an understanding of what we're going to be discussing and why it's so important for everybody to be aware of what are the stages of change so that maybe you can take into consideration where you are in your journey to mental health and how you can work with your therapist to keep progressing. So go ahead.
Thanks again. So I believe that in the business we help people fostering change. People come to us because they want to change behaviors. They want to change the quality of their thoughts. Change is a human thing. It's going to happen to all of us. But unfortunately, all human beings are very resistant to change. Some of us are a little more open to it. Some other people are more resistant. So back in the 80s, these 2 guys created a model trying to understand how change works. Originally, that model came out because they were trying to help people get out of addiction problems, but it's applicable to anything that is related to change. So that means if you want to stop eating a pint of ice cream at night, if you want to stop smoking cigarettes, I don't know who does that anymore because it's a thing of the past, but things like that. So anything that entails change, you're going to find these stages, more or less. So we do have the pre-contemplation stage, and that means the person is absolutely not aware that there is a problem. They don't have any kind of idea that there's anything that they need to be changing. Most likely people around them are going to hint and they're going to say, hey, buddy, do you think that maybe this that you're doing is not positive for you? But the person itself, they don't realize that they do have a problem or they need to change something. The next step is contemplation, and that's when the blindfold finally falls off and you go like, oh my goodness, this is not right. Maybe I need to be doing something about this behavior. I don't like this quality of thinking. And after that, when the person is really serious about it, they may get into the preparation stages. And that means you start looking online, you start Googling stuff, you start gathering all the stuff that you're going to need to take action. And the next stage, obviously, is action, which is you are actively taking the steps that you need for the change process to happen. I'm going to say in therapy, obviously, clients are going to see the most benefits from it when they're ready to take that action. It is very difficult for a person in therapy to feel like they're getting somewhere if they are unaware or they're just contemplating or preparing. Finally, we got the maintenance stage, which is you achieve your desired outcome. And let's remember, sometimes this is not mentioned, but let's remember that relapse is also part of change. So you're going to find the people that are like, I've been feeling really well these days, but then again, I took a dip. I had a depression day. I had a panic attack this one day. So just remember that change is not something that is going to remain in the maintenance stages. You may have your relapses, but that means you don't go back to pre-contemplation. It means you get back into action and you can continue to reap the benefits of your work. So basically that's it.
So that brings me to another point. There are so many people that are under the impression that because they are in therapy, that they should automatically be in the action phase. You can be in therapy and not be in action phase. You can be in therapy and still be in contemplation or even pre-contemplation. There are situations where you go to therapy for a completely different topic, or even you go into therapy because of the little bit of push that people are giving you, but psychologically, you are not there yet. So that leads me to the next phase, is like, to really be successful as a patient in a therapeutic process, knowing and being truly honest with yourself and saying, this is how much I'm willing to do. And I actually love asking that question of my patients. I will ask my patients on a regular basis. I will say, you're coming in today. How much work are you willing to do today? Is today a listening day? Do you just need a listening ear? Do you just need a supportive person to be there for you unconditionally? Or are we getting to work today? Are we actively working on your challenges today? And if you have a good relationship with your therapist, that's not an offensive question. It's more of I fully and completely see you and I accept you exactly where you are, and we're on the same journey together.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes as therapists, we just take it upon ourselves to make the client or the patient better. And I think for most of us, that would be the goal, right? To get that person to walk out of our office feeling better, accomplishing their goals. But we have to understand that it is not up to us. The person is in a journey that is a process, and we need to allow that self-discovery to happen. Try to foster the growth within those steps of change from the person itself. But yeah, it's not unusual. I had an example to give you. This happened not too long ago. This lovely couple, a woman is contacted me because she needed services for her husband. And after some back and forth, I had to tell the wife, I said, the services are for your husband. This is not couples therapy. Your husband is an adult. He should be doing the bare minimum, which is filling out forms and communicating with me. If he's not willing to do this, it's not going to work out because your husband is pre-contemplating. He's not aware that there's anything he needs to be changing. And she was in agreement with me. So sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we get this type of client or patient and we just go above and beyond. We bend over backwards to try to make the changes happen when in reality, the person is not really ready to change. So people sometimes approach therapy with that magical thinking that somehow we have this magic wand that works and I'm supposed to be doing all these wonderful things to make you better, not realizing that we're not MDs. We're not going to be prescribing you with a pill that is going to help you feel better. And so this is a process. And as a client, you need to be willing to understand that you give yourself what you get out of this process. If you work, then that's what you're going to get out of the process. If you don't work, then your therapist is going to suck, according to you.
Right, you're going to feel that. I think you make a really good point. It's possible that people are coming into the therapeutic space with the same thought pattern of walking into a doctor's office. You walk into a doctor's office, you typically are prescribed a medication, you are given a time frame for healing and to get better, whether that may be a broken bone or the flu or whatever. But there's something where you can test it, you can see it, there's evidence to prove that there's, in a week, or, oh, you broke your arm, well, let's put in a cast and it'll be, in the cast for 6 weeks and we'll take it off and you'll be fine. Unless you do something significantly different that affects the natural process of healing, you're going to find that the doctor was right. You're going to find that that medication worked, that after 6 weeks your arm was better. Maybe you needed a little bit of physical therapy afterwards, but again, you're going to get a time frame. You're going to get some concrete information. You're going to get a time frame. And I think that people come into therapy with the same belief and idea. And there's nothing that makes me cringe more than when I hear a patient say, well, I thought I would be better by now. Or what are we even doing? Like, are you even helping me? And the amount of pressure that puts on the therapist, because you're basically saying, I'm your responsibility and you're not living up to my expectations.
And along those lines, I was going to say, I hear this a lot, but at this time in my life, doing this for so long, I don't take it personal anymore.
Oh, no.
But I feel like,
Right.
well, I mean, as a baby therapist, of course I did, but like, I hear people telling me, my wife thinks that you're not doing anything, that I'm not getting better. My cousin said that I don't have a good therapist because this is not happening. So-and-so says that we're not doing much here. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. But once again, if you are considering getting yourself into a therapeutic process or a therapeutic space, you have to see that this is going to be more your work instead of the therapist's work. The therapist is there just to help you with some tools. We study theories and approaches to help you grow, but definitely we have to be able to assess, where are you in those stages of change? Are you the person that is going to be bouncing ideas off? If I bring them to your attention, hey, what about this? No, I don't want to do it. Hey, what about that? No, I don't think I want to do that either. So, just kind of like, let's be realistic when we approach the therapy process. And once again, if you are stuck in a stage, it is our work as therapists to help you move on to the next stage. That is our work. But we cannot perform miracles. And that's something that for the therapists out there, I wanted to address as well, because sometimes there is so much pressure that we feel like we're not doing enough. What else can we do to help this person? And in reality, it's an effort between two people, but mainly 90% on the client and 10% on the therapist, I would say.
I want to play devil's advocate on this too. And I want to speak from the point of view of, as well, of the patient. I do find that a lot of therapists, because they feel pressured to perform for whatever reason, it might be their own need, for recognition, and it might be their own need that gets in the way, or it might be the pressure of maybe the place where they work, or maybe the patient, whatever, for whatever reason. But there are so many therapists that do they skip important parts of the therapeutic process, and in exchange, what they do is they take on more responsibility than they should. And it's like, well, if I do more for the patient, then we get almost like a false positive. We see a false positive when the therapist works harder than the patient does. The patient does feel and see a change, but it runs out really fast because it's primarily the therapist that's holding up the weight,
of course,
of the change.
Of course. Well, I don't know for the therapists that are being trained now, but when I was trained, that was one of the cornerstones, of the training, was to make sure that we don't work any harder than the client, because that's going to create burnout for us, and we're going to be resenting what we do for a living. So anyway, if I may go back to the stages of change for a second, if you know that you want to be changing something and your therapist is challenging you, they're not doing that because they don't like you or they want to make you feel uncomfortable. Challenging a client is something that happens in the therapeutic space too. So not all the time we can be agreeing with you. I am a very loving person naturally, so I'm a very kind therapist, and I don't know if my clients would agree with me, but I guess that's the case. So I'm very loving with my clients, and I create this space for my clients. But from time to time, I have to challenge my people, because that's the only way for the person to grow. So I just wanted to put that out there for you. If you're meeting with your therapist, you get good rapport, and then they say something that all of a sudden sparked a little emotion in you that you're not used to, it's okay. That happens. We're supposed to do that. We're not supposed to be in agreement with you all the time. So I just want to mention that.
I think that if you are coming into therapy just so that you can get free validation or insurance covered validation, you're not ready for therapy. And I know that might be a bold statement to make, but honestly, if all you're coming in is just to hear the sound of your own voice, being mirrored back to you by the therapist, and then being held and your hand holding the whole way, and poor you, and your feelings and everything is valid. That's not therapy. That's your bestie in your, maybe you guys go for dinner, maybe you guys are like having a girls' night and you pour your heart out and your girl holds you and you know, shares your feelings, and like, we hate her, we hate him, you know, like the typical. But if you are coming to therapy, you should be prepared to be uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable.
It sure is.
And it is a therapist's job to challenge your established beliefs and perceptions of your life, because that is how you ended up in the problem in the first place. So if you're going into therapy and you're looking at your therapist as somebody that's supposed to just cushion you all the time and cushion your feelings all the time, then you're just looking for a friend. That's not a therapist. And I think that so many therapists have gotten into the mindset that, well, we want to be gentle and we want to be empathic and we want to be accepting and we don't want to hurt the feelings of our patients, that we do our patients a disservice in this, because we need to be challenging the perception of the patient. We need to be pushing them a little bit, not so much that you know, they have a relapse or something, but pushing them enough that they get uncomfortable with where they are so that change can happen.
And this is where you can see how skillful your therapist is. I'm going to go back to cornerstone of training. Again, for myself, speaking for myself, another thing that we don't do is do not harm. So it's not like we're going to directly hit you with a 2x4. There may be people like that out there, but the idea is to gently challenge you, or when there is enough space to do that, that's how we do it. And the whole idea behind the challenge is so that you can grow within the stages of change, so that you're no longer in the pre-contemplation stages or the contemplation stages. So please don't take it personal if there is a situation where you feel a little challenged by the therapist, because that's actually doing no harm, is to challenge you and not to just allow you to be comfortable there with whatever you're doing. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that sometimes people are not sure what is that they're going to get in the therapeutic process. And I was talking about therapeutic approaches. So if you look back in last century, a lot of therapists were trained doing psychoanalysis mainly. Mm-hmm. And that's a therapy style in where you're not going to find any kind of feedback whatsoever. It's silence, maybe some cues like, okay. And then you talk, and then you hear your own voice, and voila. By a Socratic method, you're going to find your own answers. So nowadays, all of us, or most of us, are trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm sure that your doctors are going to mention that to you guys. If you end up in a situation where you're feeling depressed or anxious, your doctor may say, have you tried cognitive behavioral therapy? So that's mainly what a lot of therapists and psychologists do in practice. And what that means is you're going to find, again, a lot of that challenge in terms of, okay, is what you're thinking actually factual, or are we imagining that is factual here? Mm-hmm. So it's a little different than psychoanalysis. And there, of course, are other things that we do as therapists. It's not only cognitive behavioral therapy, but you're going to find that your therapist is going to give you some feedback these days. That's what we can expect in 2025, as opposed to silence. But there may be some people who are still doing psychoanalysis. I don't know.
I actually happen to like psychoanalysis with certain patients. Way. I know. I even sit them on the couch. Not just kidding. Is that right? No, not to that degree. But I find that when patients are really lost as to where they are at in the stages, I do the 21 questions. So I do kind of like, with very little prompting, get them to just go down the list of like, but why? And how did that make you feel? And why? And 50 million times. And until the person seems to get like a light bulb moment. But, okay, so one of the things that we like to do, I don't know, it's just become a thing in the podcast, is we give suggestions to patients.
That's right.
And my number one, if you think of any, jump in. My first suggestion is, please communicate with your therapist. as honestly as you possibly can. So for example, if you really are not sure what you even want to work on, tell your therapist. If your therapist is not being directive enough, hey, I wish you would give me more homework. Or I feel like maybe you're a little too soft on me. I really need somebody that's going to motivate me. Or I feel like maybe you're pushing me too hard and I'm anxious about it and I feel like maybe you're asking too much of me. Try to and this is crucial in the therapeutic process because this person is supposed to be a tool, a resource that you use to get you to that next phase of your process and your life and your mental health. So use them and communicate with them on a regular basis on where you are in the stages of change. Oh, I feel much better. This has really worked. But this really hasn't. And I want to work on that. So that's my number one suggestion.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that I would suggest if you're thinking about doing therapy, please have in your head 2-3 goals. If you want to be ambitious, you may want to have 5. And then make those goals smart, small, manageable, attainable, realistic, measurable. And just discuss that with your therapist. If you're not sure as to what that looks like, the therapist should be able to help you with that. I definitely like to do that with my clients during intake. I want to be able to form a treatment plan with those goals, and then we know what to work on. Most likely that's going to be related to stages of change, because if the person doesn't know, then I guess pre-contemplation or not knowing is what's happening there. But still, it would be really helpful if you guys can just go ahead and have that in your head before you meet with your therapist the first time. That's a suggestion that I have.
One thing that I keep thinking about in our conversation about this topic is depression. So major depression, just past the 3-month threshold, you're now chronically depressed, is one particular diagnosis where I find that being intentional about your mental health process with your therapist is very difficult. And what I want to tell patients who are experiencing depression and who are listening to this and thinking, I can't even get out of bed. I can't even get out of bed. I can't think my way out of a paper bag. Like, I'm exhausted all the time, you know? How am I going to come up with 5 goals? Are you kidding me? I barely can think of one. So that's also part of being honest. It is just as important for you to be honest about what you cannot accomplish in that moment or what you can't get yourself motivated to do in that moment as it is to think of the things that you are motivated to do. Because the therapist should be, ideally you can work with a therapist who should be able to narrow down what you are able to do and what goals you're able to accomplish to a degree where you can at least start having small measurable victories.
Right, and just piggybacking on what you're saying, I do want to say, of course, I feel for my people that have depression. I would want to have a moment of self-disclosure here. I do have depression myself, so I know what that looks like. But even if it is, I want to go ahead and take a shower today.
Right.
I want to go ahead and
brush my teeth.
Yeah, I want to scroll 10 minutes less today.
Right.
Whatever that is, it is still a victory. But what I was trying to say is that what we need to do is have some sort of an idea as to where are we going with this. Because like you were saying, if you're going to sit there to just chit chat with no direction, then you're going to find yourself very, very frustrated with the process in the end, because you're going to be walking out of the office going like, or the Zoom meeting, whatever it is, going like, what did just happen there? I just wasted an hour. We didn't do anything. So that's why I was mentioning the goals. But definitely for people who are depressed, I'm sorry, just real quick, whatever you can do, it's fine. Whatever you can do today is a small victory, even if that is brushing your teeth. Go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
Right, and that's what I mean. What I was trying to say, piggybacking on the goals, is a goal is just as fundamental when you don't know what it's supposed to be measured as it is when you do. So a goal can literally be at least I wanted to make it to therapy. And that can be the first thing that you tell your therapist. It can be, I know it's not much by my standards. I probably should be doing more, but can we write down, I should be making it to therapy on a consistent basis? That would be an amazing goal. Or I want to do one thing that is self-care. Again, goals can be whether you are thinking that it's monumental or whether you're thinking that it's something very, very small. It can be just about anything. So that's a great suggestion. That my next suggestion is, I have always thought of therapy as something that people can use. And my hope and dream is that there will come a time, I don't know if this will ever happen, but maybe there will come a time in our lives when we're going to be able to see mental health as a tool that gets used on a regular basis, not for crisis management, not when you are so down and so low that you feel like you're sinking and you cannot swim to shore. My hope is that people will learn to use therapy as they transition from one phase of their lives to another in a healthy way.
Well, yeah, thank you for touching on that real quick. So I feel like a lot of couples, mainly, I've noticed it's not so much in individual counseling, but with couples, is like, oh, couples counseling don't work. Well, yes, it doesn't work, because if you wait until the marriage is inevitably broken, then there's nothing that we can do really at that stage. So what you're saying is absolutely brilliant. Therapy, I think that there is so much stuff and fluff and so many myths around therapy that people are scared. Like, I go there and I'm going to be psychoanalyzed and this person is going to judge me. And it's really not like that. Therapy is an introspective process. Again, we're creating this safe space for you. And sometimes the denial happens because the person cannot be honest. And so that's a good suggestion. Just like, be as honest as you can. We're human beings like you, and we're here just to help you out of the pickle and help you with this introspective process. But it's nothing to be afraid of. We're not here to treat you like a lab rat or a project or anything like that. We're here to hold you.
Right. While still pushing you.
Of course, it's like a personal trainer.
In the right direction. We are sort of like that. That's true. So some examples of what I was just talking about for your own reference is teens that are graduating from high school and going into college. Mm-hmm. That is a massive transition in life. I believe whether you are well adjusted or not, whether you have great parents or not, doesn't matter.
And it's for parents.
That's and what. Yes, 100%. I think parents should go to therapy, and I think that so should the child. And it's not because there's conflict or there's a problem, but because it's a major transition. I hear so often the depressed empty nesters.
Yes.
They ready to get that divorce because they don't know how to live together after the children are gone. And it's like, hey, couples, aka parents, you would do very well coming in. Doesn't have to be forever. It's just a handful of sessions. Mm-hmm. You can do some family work. You can do couples work. You can do individual work to get through that. It's a very emotional time.
And likewise, the people who are getting in relationships at any age, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It always helps to come and talk to someone just to brush those skills like communication and understanding one another. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. It just, it puzzles me real quick to see how people think about physical wellness as something that is important for them. It's paramount to go to the doctor and get the health checks and all that jazz. It's important to go to the gym and get the workout. It's important to make the money. All of that is fine, but also emotional wellness. I mean, that's the the cornerstone of our life. If the brain and the emotions are not where they need to be, I think we're in trouble. And what we're finding is that where are we getting the information that we need from? I don't like TikTok myself, but I know that Jalili is a fan of TikTok. But so we get it from TikTok, we get it from people that are online with the pop psychology stuff. So, you know, just it's easier if you just walk into a therapist's office and discuss these things with someone that is actually has been doing this for a while and knows how to help you through the stages.
Well, another one is grief.
Yes.
There's the point ultimately is we may be well adjusted to living life a certain way and at a certain pace, and then when things come that disrupt that equanimity, what the same coping mechanisms that you used before may not work for this new dynamic in your life, this new change. And grief is one of those things that just slaps you in the face, and most people are not prepared for it. Even if they've seen it coming, even if the person's ailing or older, it doesn't matter. You just are not prepared. And so go into a group session, go into a therapist that has experience with grief counseling, and just discussing it. And again, it's not for life. It's just a handful of conversations and education, psychoeducation on how to grieve in a healthy way. Because literally everything that happens in our lives that goes untreated has the potential to become a mental illness, has the potential to become a diagnosis. You don't have to have a diagnosis. You can just come in and have the session and have the coping tools and then leave and use those coping tools and not develop depression, not develop generalized anxiety, not develop OCD or an eating disorder or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm in agreement 100% with you. So your suggestion, the suggestion of the goals, I don't know if you have one more, but I also wanted to mention every person knows, they know themselves. So they don't have to admit it to someone else, but you know what's up. You got to look at the person in the mirror. So when you're ready to go and talk to someone, though, you can imagine that person is a mirror. That's our job, is to mirror you. So once again, honesty is one of the things that we're going to need. Goals, right? I don't know if you have anything else for stages of change. Don't be surprised if you get challenged. That's another thing.
Be prepared, expect it, and if you don't feel like you're being challenged enough, go ahead and ask for it. Because if you really want to see change, you have to be challenged. Your comfort zone has to be moved, and you have to be in a position where you are right now feels uncomfy, for sure.
And I don't know, I mean, as a summary, I also wanted to say that we don't have all the answers. We don't have the working magic wand. We're just here to help you through this process, up the stages of change, and, hope for the best. We're your biggest fans and your biggest, supporters, I guess. But we don't perform miracles. I guess we wish we could, but we cannot.
I actually had one of my interns tell me that she was approached and was told, your team X, as in like team patient, you're on your patient's team, and they thought that was not appropriate. And it's like, no, we're always on our patient's team. Like, we're always rooting for our patients from day one.
Absolutely.
It's not that we pick, like, it's not about favoritism, but we're definitely doing everything we can to help them because we have a connection and an empathic connection with that person, and we see them as struggling and we want them to be better.
Which, by the way, thank you. One more suggestion. If for some reason you connect with someone the first time and you realize that there is no chemistry, there's no vibe, that's totally okay, because this is not a cookie cutter type of a situation where you have to accept it and take it and this is a therapist. No, if you don't feel it, by all means, try to look for someone that you vibe with and you connect with, because that rapport is essential for this process.
And one last thing, the therapist will only know you has much as you allow yourself to be known. So yes, we're talking about honesty, but also remember that you, like Dr. Anamaria said, you know yourself better than anybody else. And so you know your symptoms better than anybody else. You know what you're experiencing, your journey, your life better than anybody else, including the therapist. So part of building that rapport and working towards that change process is telling the therapist, hey, no, I don't think that that's the symptom that I'm feeling. Like if the therapist is telling you, oh, so are you telling me that you have anxiety? No, that's not quite what I think. It's more like, yes, I feel the palpitations, but it's during a specific situation. It's not anxiety generalized all the time. It's just only when I see this one person. Okay, well, that's a little bit different because that's not an anxiety disorder. That's not a diagnosis of anxiety disorder. What did this person do? What happened? Can you remember? Blah, blah, blah. So like the therapist is going to try to go with whatever information you give them. Don't be afraid to clarify, to inform, to educate.
To disagree.
And even disagree with what the therapist is saying and give them some clarity because you know yourself better than anybody else does. And the therapist is going to take whatever you say and just try to put it together so that they can build that treatment plan for you and that support for you. So, yeah.
And please remember, this is a process. I don't know if I can stress that enough. Give yourself the time. Mm-hmm. Whomever is telling you that things can change for you within a couple of days, an hour, a month, I think that they're promising you things that are lies. That's snake oil, guys. I think, as a matter of fact, there was some sort of a urban legend out there that said that if you do something for 25 days or 30 days, that you will change your habits. That's not necessarily true. Each person is different. But you got to understand that this change stuff that we're talking about is a process. And you do have to go through the stages. And it's going to be hard because nobody likes change.
That's the fact.
There you go.
Okay, so hopefully you guys took something out of this that was helpful. We love you. We appreciate you. As always, feel free to give us your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, suggestions for future podcasts. Thank you, Dr. Anamaria.
Thank you, Jalili.
As always, and we will catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you.